You know, and it's the same areas yesterday, almost, not exactly, but close to it. And we saw the potential for this cluster of storms to move overnight through Oklahoma into Texas here. And that's what we're seeing. But this has been a repeat. So we go back to the weekend. There's a cluster that was Saturday into Sunday morning. We did another one yesterday morning, a big cluster of storms. I mean, it looks like we're looping the same day over and over, but these are different days, just following the same pattern. And by the cluster, I'm talking about this big flare up of thunderstorm activity that we see happen overnight. And pretty much Oklahoma, you are sort of right in ground zero for all of this. And that's where we start this morning with the thunder and the lightning happening right here in Oklahoma. Now starting to move into parts of Arkansas and into Texas as well, blasting down through Texarkana. We're watching for that leading edge to bring with it the risk for some strong damaging winds potentially. Don't have any severe warnings out there right now, but also some heavy rain behind it. You notice what's happening here around the Fort Smith area. We do have a flash flood warning because of that. Lots of lightning on the leading edge of this here. It's coming through Mount Pleasant in Texas, Texarkana. You guys have had some of the worst of the weather come on through. I kind of joked earlier this morning that we should have sent someone to do live reports from Texarkana, and we could have sent them there on Saturday and they could just stay for a week because we're going to keep on getting these kind of thunderstorm complexes overnight here. It is a very summer-like thing for the atmosphere to do, and that's something Molly and I will talk about coming up a little bit later in the show. What is summer-like weather when it comes to thunderstorms? But the rainfall that we've had with this here is a part of it, and we've had areas near McAllister. This is just the past 6 hours coming in with more than 3 to 5 or 6 inches of rainfall. Now that area towards Fort Smith again getting into some heavier rain. This is not counting what you got yesterday, which was a lot of rain as well. So our multiple day totals have really been adding up. And when you look at the dew points and when you look at the moisture in the atmosphere, it is there. It is not going away, even as this complex, and you can see it actually in the dew point. It's kind of cool in that dew point field. Watch it propagate here through the south and east. You just see that sort of little orb move through. It's using up some moisture, but there's plenty there for the next round of storms to tap into and still be a heavy rainmaker. So with an atmosphere like that, you watch for heavy rain to continue to be a threat. We're also going to see, again, the risk for some thunderstorms, potentially complex overnight that brings with it the hail threat, the damaging wind threat, and then becomes a big rainmaker as well as a wind maker into the overnight as a complex of thunderstorms here. Here's how it could look as we take a look real quick at that complex of potentially of storms. We're watching right now scattered showers and storms evolve out of that. But here comes the new one. This is about 8 o'clock tonight. On that leading edge, strong winds, could see some hail. And then look at this overnight again, Texarkana, 4 a.m. More thunderstorms coming your way, and that continues to sink south through the early morning hours here. It is on repeat, a pattern on repeat, Molly.
It really is, and with more showers on
where sunshine and clear skies will give way to clouds and thunderstorms. We've got some showers out there already across the northern plains. They are on the move, and a scene like this here, be ready. Break out those rain boots. Severe storms actually could soak the upper Midwest today and march east across the Great Lakes tomorrow. So I want to time all of this out. Right now, we're kind of in between everything. You can see the system off to the south, Minneapolis, and some of the clouds getting closer to you, and then the system off to the west, and you can see the clouds getting closer to you. But we're in a beautiful morning right now in between it all here in the Twin Cities. But by later today into tonight, everything comes our way, and we do get that risk of thunderstorms, possible severe weather, damaging winds and hail, the main threat. So let's track it and time it and just actually talk about how the atmosphere has changed compared to what we had maybe over the weekend. The moisture has come back. It feels a little more humid. The background color is the dew points. So those are all up across this area. Temperatures are warm. We've got 85 degrees in Minneapolis today, and with that higher dew point, it's going to feel really sticky and really kind of summer-like out there for you. So the next ingredient that we need to look out for is how much instability is in the atmosphere. That's this background color we've got on this map with the forecast, with the radar. And as we look forward to the future, when we see these bigger amounts of instability to the south, that's the kind of air that we're going to get up here to the north. So we're going to see the instability gaining. We're going to watch the mid-level winds actually cross this area too. So enough features are coming together that we've got that risk for severe weather here. And now that background instability color, you see how that flares up into the bright red colors, indicating higher amounts of atmospheric instability. That's fuel for the thunderstorms to basically use. And we've got that risk of severe weather. This is about 5 o'clock. The rush hour home will not be fun in the Twin Cities. Up towards Duluth a little bit later, maybe about 7 o'clock or so. Coming down through Iowa too, Mason City, Des Moines, get ready for thunderstorms. And Chicago, we could have a few storms before this, but we'll still track this main event here coming your way as we get into the overnight hours. We'll see how much of that severe potential holds here. At that point, instability is waning. Molly?
Same system that's soaking the upper mid.
Does it matter how far out? I'm wondering. You guys have to weigh in on this. So if it's a forecast for thunderstorms a week out or a day out, you know.
Oh gosh, yeah, that makes a big
Or
point.
scattered thunderstorms, scattered thunderstorms, scattered thunderstorms.
Right. So what makes you change your plans?
Yes.
Is it one or the other, or is it both? You can go to Threads to send us your comments, and you can share your pictures and video with us using the hashtag YesTV.
Now, we already shared that comment, right? Yes, we did. All right. So coming up this morning here on America's Morning Headquarters, it's a place we've all heard about, but
To put anybody in danger.
right. No, it's an interesting, sort of development. And of course, we'll be following the latest out of there. Tomorrow, we're going to talk more about what's happening with the launch, the Boeing launch for Starliner here. Will it happen tomorrow? Well, we've got an interview planned for you tomorrow, actually. And, and what significance that has in terms of our next steps of getting to the moon.
It'll be interesting. All right. Well, we will be right back here on America's Morning Headquarters.
Zone. So let's look at that here, where we've got heat advisories in Texas, excessive heat warnings in South Texas. This is not our first time with the heat here this year, but these are some extreme levels, and it's not just about the temperature. The heat index is going to be higher.
Right. So these are our forecast highs, but when you factor in the humidity, like Corpus Christi, our dew point is 80, 82 this morning. I mean, that is really tough.
Relief.
No, and your body it doesn't sweat as efficiently when you have that kind of heat index. So these are the records that we're facing today, maybe tying some, maybe breaking some. Anytime you're in that category in the summertime, we're dealing with some pretty intense heat.
Yeah. I mean, look at this neon purple that we're getting to on our map when it comes to heat index here, getting to that level where it's going to feel like 110 or hotter. San Antonio, Corpus Christi, Brownsville, and a lot of communities in between will be dealing with that. That drives this major heat risk out there today, or extreme, I should say, major and extreme all across the zone. But heat risk is a newer tool that we have available to communicate just how tough the heat could be on your body. And it involves, is this the first big heat of the season? Is it going to last long, or is it really extreme? And in this case, it's really extreme. Even though we've had a lot of hot days already this year, this is at an extreme level.
So when we're in that extreme level, some things to remember: you might have poor air quality, you might have power outages, even in places that we do have power outages. That makes it, of course, even more difficult. But stay hydrated, stay in a cool place, and maybe consider those outside plans, moving them inside to a place that's air conditioned.
I know you'd be looking for some way to beat the heat, right? Your temperatures are going to be hot, but the feels like is what you really need to pay attention to. And that doesn't go down even as the sun sets. It's going to feel like above 100 all day long here, pretty much. Lunchtime to 9 o'clock in San Antonio, still feeling 100 plus. And that's in the shade. Yeah.
One of the big issues, too, is that you're not cooling off through the overnight hours. Our lows in Corpus Christi and Brownsville are going to be in the 80s. That's not a lot of opportunity for your body to have a break from the heat.
So you're hoping for something to break the heat, maybe a shower or something, right? Well, this time of year, when temperatures start to rise and storms start to bubble up, we often hear the term heat lightning. But let me tell you, heat lightning is not a real thing.
Jen's going to get up on her soapbox.
Yes, on hot days like this, sometimes we get thunderstorms. And yes, sometimes you see lightning out there. But these thunderstorms and the lightning within them, you can't call it heat lightning. All lightning is hot, but these thunderstorms, the ones that you don't hear the thunder, they're just too far away for you to hear the thunder. But this actual thunderstorms, and it's actual lightning. So heat lightning, I mean, there's no such thing, right? It's an old wives' tale. Your mother, your grandmother told you about it. Mine did too. Molly's did too. Oh, yeah. We all have thought at some point that heat lightning was a real thing, but no, it's just a thunderstorm that's too far away. Thunder has an audible distance of about 20 miles, and realistically, it's probably about 10 to 15. So anything farther than that, you're just not going to hear it. You could see lightning. The visibility is good, hundreds of miles away. Not see hundreds, but maybe 100.
I grew up with part of my weather fascination. The thing that sparked it was watching heat lightning in the summertime, because it's hearing your parents and your grandparents talk about it, and it's just one of those things that's really fascinating. You're like, I can see it, but I can't hear it.
So you probably wonder, well, is it dangerous? It's far away. We say when thunder roars, go indoors. That's a good measure of when the storms are close enough to cause a risk. And we've got those kind of storms out there right now. Plenty of lightning, and you're probably hearing the thunder in Texarkana, in central Missouri, up into the north coast of Michigan. We've got lightning this morning.
We do. Lightning is not just an afternoon thing in the summertime. It can happen any time of the day. Unfortunately, we've already had one lightning fatality, and we do tend to see the lightning fatalities go up in the summertime for just the reason that people are out kids are out of school,
Right.
families are trying to enjoy their summer vacations. It's really the months of June, July, and August that we see the most lightning deaths. So just a reminder to be really careful this time of year and don't mess around with the thunder and lightning.
That was a Colorado rancher that died because of lightning, the first death of the year. When we look at lightning frequency, it is highest across parts of the south and east. Happens to be where we have the thunderstorms. I mean, Florida,
right,
known as the lightning capital.
Well, as spring gives way to summer, we're watching
This week or so through the southeast, it's been a little more bark than bite. You know, there's been a lot of scattered showers here, but throughout the rest of the southeast, with the exception of the lower Mississippi Valley, you've kind of missed out on the big rain. So I want to look at that. Let's look at where we are right now. In terms of biggest rain, I'm looking at Fort Smith, where we just got that cluster of storms to go through. We're still raining. We picked up more than 2 inches of rain, 2.3 inches of rain in the last 24 hours. And we picked up close to an inch in just the last 3 hours. You can see why. There's a flash flood warning right there. The line of storms came through Texarkana, brought some heavy rain. We saw winds gusting to 35 miles per hour there. We've got some scattered showers out here with a little disturbance across western and middle Tennessee. That's also moving across northern Alabama. That's not going to cause a lot of rainfall. The bigger rain is going to be back here with the next cluster of storms that we see developing through the later hours today into the overnight. And then again, we'll travel somewhere in this vicinity, Oklahoma into Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana. Now, the remnants of the one we're watching right now will keep going, and we'll see some more thunderstorms out of that. We'll also see this general pop-up showers out here. They'll probably not be at severe limits. It's possible, but there still could bring some rainfall. It just won't bring the heaviest of rain right there. The heaviest of rain, let me use a different color so you can see that. The heaviest of rain will be right here where we've got the clusters of thunderstorms, those overnight big clusters developing and then extending heavy rainfall here over the same spots through Oklahoma into northeastern Texas, southwestern Arkansas, northwest Louisiana. We have done this about 3 nights in a row, and we're going to add a few more to it when we look at this pattern that we are in. So flood watches are up. Texarkana, Shreveport, Lufkin, all under a flood watch. This goes through tomorrow. Back towards eastern, southeastern Oklahoma, including around McAllister, where now 2 mornings in a row we've had some big rainfall come through thanks to a big overnight cluster of thunderstorms. Let's track it for you. Again, the one that we're watching right now. Now, this is a little underdone and off place compared to where the model has it and what we're dealing with. But just to give you a sense, it's going to, we think, weaken and still pop some showers as we get into Louisiana. And all the while, all these other scattered showers are popping out there. And in places like Nashville and Memphis, even Huntsville, you'll have a chance for that. But the big rain comes out of this big cluster, Molly, as we get into the overnight hours yet again.
Yet again. And this is
we want to talk about some of the differences between spring and summer when it comes to severe weather risks. And let's just go back to where we've been so far. I mean, it's been a busy year, and not just in the places like you would expect it. I mean, yes, Texas is coming in with the lead of 112 tornadoes.
Well, Texas, you also have a lot of real estate too, so your numbers tend to be a little bit higher, but it also has been an extremely active season. Right behind that, Iowa. Right. To see that early in the season. Severe season, because usually we see the jet stream lift to the north, and we'll get to that in a second, but that brings the tornadoes north as well.
But it's been a very busy season well north here, not just Iowa, but in Illinois and in Ohio. We've had a record number of tornadoes. Both April and May were busy, especially the latter half of April leading into May. I mean, most days featured some kind of severe weather.
And that's not just tornadoes. That includes hail and wind reports. And every single box that you see in red there, every single date, that's above average.
Right.
That's well above average.
The pattern that was driving this was generally this. Not every day was like this, but generally we had a trough in the west here, and that set up a pretty active jet stream over the middle of the country, but extending over the Ohio Valley, and that allowed the storm track to be there. And this actually kind of correlates to the temperatures that we saw too.
We saw cooler weather in parts of the west. Trough. And then you saw the warmer temperatures, above average temperatures in parts of, say, mostly the eastern half, but there are some hot spots that stood out, like around the Great Lakes in the Ohio Valley.
So generally ridgy. And again, the pattern that we saw, they kind of match up. So what's going to happen as we go into June is we're expecting this to flip, and we're expecting to see a ridge in the west and generally troughy in the east.
Typically, when you have one place that is well above average, you're going to have another spot that is well below average.
Yeah.
Atmosphere likes balance.
Yes, I just saw you do that, like shift on TV, and that exactly played it out. And we see this in the temperature forecast, where now we're likely to go above average in the west, ridgy, below average in the east, trophy.
But when it comes to severe storms, when you follow the jet stream, that's when you follow the path of the storms. And what's very typical that happens in June is that the jet stream starts to travel to the north up to the Canadian border, and that brings the storms. There's a tornado season in the Canadian plains.
Right, and we're starting to get into that. You know, we see this is traditional, like where do we see May tornado watches here? Going back in history from 2003 to 2022. Many issued across Oklahoma here, as you would expect in the month of May. But once you get into June, watch what happens.
You see them start to drift to the north. However, we saw that jet stream kind of waffle in May, north to the south, and that brought more of the severe weather into places that don't classically see it until June or July.
So it does make me think, you know, this year, Nebraska, Iowa, it's going to be a tough year. I mean, we've already had a very busy May, and we're getting into your season now as we get into June.
And then on top of that, you've got the overnight complexes that come through places like the plains, which we've already seen getting into it. So we're kind of in the mix of a lot of different, we're definitely in a transition time right now when it comes to the atmosphere. Well, don't forget.
We've been predicting and studying hurricanes for years, but there's still so much to learn about one of Earth's most powerful storms, and modern technology is helping advance that research. Meteorologist Stephanie Abrams introduces us to some hurricane hardware. Yes, and the more data, the better the forecast, actually. The more we know about what's happening in the environment now, the better we can predict how that's going to change in the future. Now, at the moment, we've got no tropical development expected over the next 7 days. We look out over the Atlantic Ocean, look out over the Caribbean, and you probably notice, I mean, first of all, this string of thunderstorm clusters out here, this in the Intertropical Convergence Zone, the ITCZ. Nothing expected to develop here. But, you know, you watch a couple areas through the Western Caribbean, getting over closer into the Western Atlantic. And at the moment, the winds here are too strong, but certainly this is an area to keep an eye on in the coming days and weeks, because it's a traditionally active time to be watching this area.
And this is a traditionally hot time in Oklahoma for a while, and people just it's just different in Oklahoma.
They embrace the storms without the heat.
You have to, right? We'll be right back.
Us as we help you plan for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast, and severe season, unfortunately, at this point in early June, is not letting up, even as the pattern starts to shift to something that is more classically summer.
I mean, you saw that tornado snaking across the sky behind us here, and coming in all different forms.
It really, this was in Sanderson, Texas, and this very same storm actually threw a Border Patrol agent 200 yards.
Yeah.
Survived in the hospital, but I mean, my goodness, how scary would that have been?
Very scary. You know, we see the view out here, and we start to shift as we get into the month of June where we see some tornadoes. We look back to West Texas, the dry line. We start to look a little farther north. We're going to talk more about how this pattern shift happens in June coming up, but we also got to talk about the heat, because temperatures have been rising. Texas, you've been feeling it for a while, but now we get to the west, and even Las Vegas feeling the heat with alerts that go into effect today. It's really a blast of heat too, because you went from pretty comfortable to the heat blasting at full blast.
I was anxious to see what the temperature was going to be in Las Vegas because I didn't have time to look it up before, but we're already 85 and we're very early in the morning. When it comes to heat and summertime and storms, there's a particular type of lightning that happens. And it happens to be Jen's least favorite. So we're going to let her get on her soapbox later and explain that type of lightning and you know, what people have to say about it. And you just wait for it.
It is something I'm pretty passionate about. Yeah. If you know, kind of deal with me.
Well, by land, by sea, and
for the end to come. And it's not every single night. There's another one that is tracking here. When I say another one, another complex of thunderstorms tracking here through the southern plains. And they've been taking very similar tracks night after night. We take you back to the weekend. There was a big cluster of storms that was Sunday into Monday, another one Monday morning. We saw that yesterday, another one last night. We're watching that this morning. I'm going to let it reset because we had Saturday here into Sunday morning. There we go. Then we go Sunday into Monday morning. That one tracks here. Then we go Monday into Tuesday, and that's where we pick up right now with thunderstorms in a big cluster that have been on the move through Oklahoma, now into Texas and into Arkansas, bringing some of the heavy rainfall as well as the threat for some gusty winds. Now, this is approaching Shreveport. We're going to keep an eye on Shreveport on how strong the winds get for you. Texarkana, when this leading edge came through, you see it kind of bowing out like that. It was about 35 25 miles per hour through there. And so we'll watch Shreveport. You know, if anything, it's not losing strength. It's not gaining a ton of strength either, though. So we could see winds of at least that, I think, in Shreveport. We're also seeing some heavy rain behind this system lingering, too. And so that'll be another challenge watching around the Mount Pleasant area. These thunderstorms have just kind of been sitting there for the last 2 hours, maybe even 3 hours at this point. So dropping some heavier rainfall totals. Some of the bigger numbers have been coming out around McAllister and just south of there. This is the past 6-hour radar estimates. Fort Smith, I was looking at you because in the past 24 hours, you've had over 2 inches of rainfall, 2.35. And in the past 3 hours, you've had about an inch. So it's definitely been some heavier rainfall there. Let's see, though, what are the odds of this getting even more strong in Shreveport? We don't have a lot of instability. So I'm not thinking there's great odds of this actually increasing in strength, much more than what we have right now. But that will change as we get into the afternoon. Daytime heating plays a role. The sun helps gain that instability. So by the time we get to tonight, we see another cluster of storms that'll be tapping into instability, bringing the threat for hail. We could see that in Oklahoma. Also a very strong damaging wind threat. We see that in Oklahoma, but then also a heavy rain threat. And I'll watch that too. And again, some of the same spots. Texarkana, keep an eye on things for you. We get through today, and then tonight, here we go. Here's our new cluster developing. Tulsa, we get that. Texarkana, tomorrow morning, 4 a.m. There's your cluster of storms, and eventually to Shreveport yet again. Day 2 on repeat. Molly.
Well, more showers are on the way for us.
Let's talk about where we could see scenes like this. Thanks to our virtual view technology, I'm transported to East 9th Street Pier in Cleveland, where sunny, clear skies will give way to some clouds and thunderstorms. So let's talk about when you got to break out either the rain boots or maybe the flip-flops, because that's what I like to wear when it's raining in the summertime. Cleveland, we do start the day off really nice. You can see here we are, Cleveland, looking at a beautiful day. In fact, the clouds are pretty far away from us. You might have a few high clouds out there right now, but nothing that's going to bring any precipitation. That changes as we get within the next 24 hours. Now, right now, we're keeping an eye on a couple of thunderstorms here. This one has just gotten a little feisty out there, now moving into parts of Kansas, northern Kansas here. This is out ahead of our front. Our next system moving in. This one, I would say, likely has the risk of both hail and damaging winds as we watch this continue to track east. That system is going to be on the move. And so we'll watch for those kind of storms throughout the later hours of the day today into tonight, into Minnesota, southward in Iowa, through Kansas, and maybe even places like Kansas City as well. So again, you can see how far west that is right now compared to where we're looking at that severe risk. But we are already getting some thunderstorms going, even early in the day. Speaks to the instability that we already have in the atmosphere. The moisture is plentiful. Dew points are up. It feels like summertime stickiness out there all the way up into Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And we are getting a warm day with temperatures surging into the mid-80s, up to 86 degrees in Minneapolis. So hot and humid, we got it. Now, in the past couple of hours, we've already noticed the instability starting to build. That's that background color that you see of red here into Minnesota, into Wisconsin. Now, as storms move into this area and as new ones fire up with all of the triggers that will happen, that instability will be the fuel for thunderstorms. So let's watch and see how things play out as we get through the next couple of hours. Thunderstorms, I think, will expand in terms of coverage. We'll see that expand in terms of intensity, too. Coming through Kansas probably first, then up through eastern South Dakota, coming into western Minnesota. This is 5 o'clock tonight. Twin Cities, these storms are bearing down on you through the evening hours, and we'll see that continue to track east as we get into tonight. Chicago, I think, luckily, because they're coming in the overnight, they should be weakening. We lose that instability here. Molly.
Well, that very same system that's so to stay hydrated. There's nothing worse when you're driving and you're like, oh, I don't want to stop and get water because then I'm going to have to stop and go to the bathroom.
And the cooler is key, though, actually, to keep it cool.
Recently learned that trick. I think traveling with kids changes your perspective on things.
Need to be more prepared.
Yep. Well, you can go to Threads to send us your comments, and you can share your pictures and video with us by using the hashtag YesTV.
Well, talk about where we could see scenes like this. Thanks to our virtual view technology, I'm transported to East 9th Street Pier in Cleveland, where sunny, clear skies will give way to some clouds and thunderstorms. So let's talk about when you got to break out either the rain boots or maybe the flip-flops, because that's what I like to wear when it's raining in the summertime. Cleveland, we do start the day off really nice. You can see here we are, Cleveland, looking at a beautiful day. In fact, the clouds are pretty far away from us. You might have a few high clouds out there right now, but nothing that's going to bring any precipitation. That changes as we get within the next 24 hours. Now, right now, we're keeping an eye on a couple of thunderstorms here. This one has just gotten a little feisty out there, now moving into parts of Kansas, northern Kansas here. This is out ahead of our front. Our next system moving in. This one, I would say, likely has the risk of both hail and damaging winds as we watch this continue to track east. That system is going to be on the move. And so we'll watch for those kind of storms throughout the later day hours of the day today into tonight, into Minnesota, southward in Iowa, through Kansas, and maybe even places like Kansas City as well. So again, you can see how far west that is right now compared to where we're looking at that severe risk. But we are already getting some thunderstorms going, even early in the day. Speaks to the instability that we already have in the atmosphere. The moisture is plentiful. Dew points are up. It feels like summertime stickiness out there all the way up into Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And we are getting a warm day with temperatures surging into the mid 80s, up to 86 degrees in Minneapolis. So hot and humid, we got it. Now, in the past couple of hours, we've already noticed the instability starting to build. That's that background color that you see of red here into Minnesota, into Wisconsin. Now, as storms move into this area and as new ones fire up with all of the triggers that will happen, that instability will be the fuel for thunderstorms. So let's watch and see how things play out as we get through the next couple of hours. Thunderstorms, I think, will expand in terms of coverage. We'll see that expand in terms of intensity, too. Coming through Kansas probably first, then up through eastern South Dakota, coming into western Minnesota. This is 5 o'clock tonight. Twin Cities, these storms are bearing down on you through the evening hours, and we'll see that continue to track east as we get into tonight. Chicago, I think, luckily, because they're coming in the overnight, they should be weakening. We lose that instability here. Molly.
Oh, that very same system that's so.
We help you plan for all the big events in your neighborhood.
The Weather Channel has you covered from coast to coast, and severe season, unfortunately, at this point in early June, is not letting up. Even as the pattern starts to shift to something that is more classically summer.
I mean, you saw that tornado snaking across the sky behind us here, and coming in all different forms.
It really, this was in Sanderson, Texas, and this very same storm actually threw a Border Patrol agent 200 yards.
Yeah.
Survived in the hospital, but I mean, my goodness, how scary would that have been?
Very scary. You know, we see the view out here, and we start to shift as we get into the month of June where we see some tornadoes. We look back to West Texas, the dry line. We start to look a little farther north. We're going to talk more about how this pattern shift happens in June coming up, but we also got to talk about the heat because temperatures have been rising. Texas, you've been feeling it for a while, but now we get to the west, and even Las Vegas feeling the heat with alerts that go into effect today. It's really a blast of heat too, because you went from pretty comfortable to the heat blasting at full blast.
I was anxious to see what the temperature was going to be in Las Vegas because I didn't have time to look it up before, but we're already 85 and we're very early in the morning. When it comes to heat and summertime and storms, there's a particular type of lightning that happens. And it happens to be Jen's least favorite. So we're going to let her get on her soapbox later and explain that type of lightning and you know, what people have to say about it. And you just wait for it.
It is something I'm pretty passionate about. Yeah. If you know, kind of deal with me.
Well, by land, by sea, and
Texas, not our first rodeo this summer with the heat already, but this is extreme.
Let's start in Texas, where we have excessive heat warnings down in South Texas, but a lot of heat advisories covering the Hill Country all the way back to Fort Stockton and even El Paso.
And so excessive heat warnings, that's when we're getting to that upper level heat intensity, not just temperatures, but you factor in the dew point and the feels like goes up to really dangerous levels.
These are our forecast highs against the records. Many areas are either tying or breaking records, but as Jen mentioned, really the more important number is the heat index. What is it going to feel like outside? Corpus Christi, 113, 113 San Antonio, Brownsville, 114. That's where our dew points are. They're gross.
Yeah. Yes, gross is the best way to describe it. Dew points are up near 80. It is very humid out. Your body just doesn't get a break. And so the heat risk is extreme, actually, across a large portion of South Texas. This is a newer product available from the National Weather Service, and they've been testing it in the West actually for years. But now it's available nationwide. And once you get to these extreme levels of heat risk here, it is quite dangerous for everyone. You want to make sure you're able to keep hydrated, getting to a cool place, consider canceling outdoor activities during the peak of the heating, and poor air quality can be an issue. Power outages can be an issue. The heat actually takes a toll on some of the equipment too. Not just
it does on power infrastructure. Yeah. Now, this is the time of year that we're in the summertime, and we see really tall thunderstorms. They bubble up. At nighttime, we often hear a term called heat lightning. I'm dancing around it because
I know where you're going.
Jen's got a lot to say about this.
I know where you're going.
So much so, we're going to let her get up on her soapbox for a minute and talk about it. Because
step up here.
Jen, heat lightning is not real.
I thought you guys might give me an actual box to stand on, but I appreciate just the one step. Heat lightning. Yes. Okay. So many people say, oh, that's a real thing. My mom told me about it, or my grandmother, my grandfather told me about it. Heat lightning is not real. All lightning is hot. Lightning is hotter than the surface of the sun. It's hotter than 50,000 degrees. But when you think about the storm, that you just see the lightning and you can't hear the thunder, it's because it's too far away. That's it. Simple as that. It's not heat lightning, not because you had a really hot day out. Yes, the thunderstorm may have happened because of that, but the fact that you don't hear the thunder is simply because, well, thunder has an audible distance of about 20 miles, and realistically, it's probably 10 to 15 miles that you can hear it. So anything farther than that, you can see the lightning, especially if you have good visibility, but you can't hear the thunder. So I'll step off.
Bravo, Jen, off the soapbox.
We can continue going from heat to lightning, because in these hot days, sometimes you do get that one lone thunderstorm that bubbles up out there.
And with that one lone thunderstorm, sometimes you can have the lightning that jumps out ahead of it.
Right.
The bolts out of the blue. So that's why thunder, you can hear it. It's time to head indoors. We do have some lightning around the complex we've been watching all morning long in the Texas area, but also a few scattered with some thunderstorms going on in the morning.
Yeah. Now, so far this year, we've had one person die because of a lightning strike. That was a rancher in Colorado. It's the only one yet this year. Let's, hopefully as we go forward through the year, we can prevent any more. Simply going inside is a game changer.
Right.
And that's, we'll go back over decades here. We've really learned a lot about lightning safety, and people do move inside when there's lightning.
Unfortunately, it is the summer months that we see the most lightning fatalities, simply because people are outside. They're trying to enjoy the warmth, the sun. A lot of times you're in the pool, you're doing water activities, you're golfing.
Right.
Those are all the things that make lightning so dangerous.
Maybe taking more risks to try to stay out just one more moment.
Yeah.
The lightning, when you look at where lightning is the highest, yes, Florida known as the lightning capital. Oklahoma actually has a lot of lightning too. But it's the areas of the country that traditionally get the most thunderstorms during the summertime.
And during the summertime, we have a lot of baseball games.
Mm-hmm. And these overnight clusters of storms that bring it all. They'll probably start with a hail and wind threat, and then they bring wind and rain and lightning through the overnights here. And that's what we're dealing with this morning, with a big cluster of storms that has been tracking from Oklahoma now into Texas, through Arkansas, and has made its way into Louisiana and Shreveport. Good morning to you. Here comes your thunderstorms here from that overnight cluster. Sort of a daily thing these days for us, and actually a very summer-like thing for the atmosphere to be doing. We also have a couple other areas to keep an eye on. Just a couple of showers out here. Weak little disturbance bringing showers in western and middle Tennessee. Those do extend down into Alabama. Now, those have shown a little more growth to them. They're still not severe or anything, but we'll see if you get a little heavier downpour out of that. A couple of those have popped here across western Kentucky, too. But at the moment, the main event going on in the south is this cluster of thunderstorms that started last night and continues this morning. So we'll watch that continue to roll here through the south and east. Shreveport, obviously, it's on your doorstep right now. Well, Alexandria, potential to hold together. And there is the potential that it could grow stronger and bring us the risk of some stronger winds as it gets into the more unstable air. And then tonight, we go back into this area, into Oklahoma. We've got the risk of hail, wind, and heavy rainfall. Likely to see some flash flooding through tomorrow morning into southeastern Oklahoma, northeastern Texas, getting into southwestern Arkansas and northwestern parts of Louisiana, Texarkana. Yet again, Shreveport, yet again, you could get heavy rain. And, because it's maybe about the fourth day in a row that you've seen that, it sort of adds up, right? Over time, the fact that everything's so saturated continues to be a concern. We've had a top wettest start to the year, top 5 in most of these spots, Texarkana, Shreveport, Monroe, I think you're top 1. And so flood watches are up as we see the next round of rain come on in. Now, let's track that. So again, the existing cluster of storms, models have not actually been doing a great job with showing how much of it's hold together, because if you remember, we had thunderstorms that were in a line out here approaching Shreveport. Not severe, but there, and the model doesn't have that. So I think there's going to be a bit more between Shreveport and Alexandria than the model is showing us. But I want to use some of this other information, like what's showing up across Middle Tennessee. there'll be some thunderstorms this afternoon. We are not necessarily telling you exactly where they'll be, but the chance is there for that. And then as we get into the overnight, do we see storms in Memphis, in Greenville, Mississippi, or over towards Oklahoma City? Yes, most likely. That's where our next cluster of storms develops and then rolls through into the overnight south and east. Molly.
Well, the severe threat to...
Let's talk about where we could see scenes like this. Thanks to our virtual view technology, I'm transported to East 9th Street Pier in Cleveland, where sunny, clear skies will give way to some clouds and thunderstorms. So let's talk about when you got to break out either the rain boots or maybe the flip-flops, because that's what I like to wear when it's raining in the summertime. Cleveland, we do start the day off really nice. You can see here we are, Cleveland, looking at a beautiful day. In fact, the clouds are pretty far away from us. You might have a few high clouds out there right now, but nothing that's going to bring any precipitation. That changes as we get within the next 24 hours. Now, right now, we're keeping an eye on a couple of thunderstorms here. This one has just gotten a little feisty out there, now moving into parts of Kansas, northern Kansas here. This is out ahead of our front. Our next system moving in. This one, I would say, likely has the risk of both hail and damaging winds as we watch this continue to track east. That system is going to be on the move. And so we'll watch for those kind of storms throughout the later day hours of the day today into tonight, into Minnesota, southward in Iowa, through Kansas, and maybe even places like Kansas City as well. So again, you can see how far west that is right now compared to where we're looking at that severe risk. But we are already getting some thunderstorms going, even early in the day. Speaks to the instability that we already have in the atmosphere. The moisture is plentiful. Dew points are up. It feels like summertime stickiness out there all the way up into Minnesota and the Twin Cities. And we are getting a warm day with temperatures surging into the mid-80s, up to 86 degrees in Minneapolis. So hot and humid, we got it. Now, in the past couple of hours, we've already noticed the instability starting to build. That's that background color that you see of red here into Minnesota, into Wisconsin. Now, as storms move into this area and as new ones fire up with all of the triggers that will happen, that instability will be the fuel for thunderstorms. So let's watch and see how things play out as we get through the next couple of hours. Thunderstorms, I think, will expand in terms of coverage. We'll see that expand in terms of intensity, too. Coming through Kansas probably first, then up through eastern South Dakota, coming into western Minnesota. This is 5 o'clock tonight. Twin Cities, these storms are bearing down on you through the evening hours, and we'll see that continue to track east as we get into tonight. Chicago, I think, luckily, because they're coming in the overnight, they should be weakening. We lose that instability here. Molly.
That very same system that's so